All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to play detective. We're going to try and reconstruct a person's entire life, but not with diaries or photos. Nope, we're going to use the only things they left behind: official documents. I mean, think about it for a second. How do you actually tell the story of someone who left behind none of the personal stuff? No journal, no letters to family, not even a gravestone to mark where they ended up. What can you really know? Well, the answer is you follow the paper trail. Our person of interest is a man named Jeremiah Knowlton, who lived in the Massachusetts Bay Colony way back in the 18th century. We're going to piece together his whole story, from the day he was born to the day he died, using nothing but the little breadcrumbs he left in the official records. So where do we even begin? Well, like a lot of stories, this one starts with two separate families whose lives are about to cross in a big way. The first clues we have are their birth records. Okay, so let's meet our two main characters. On the left, you've got Jeremiah Knowlton, born in Concord in 1745. And then, just 5 years later and a few miles down the road, Abigail Peirce is born in Waltham in 1750. Just two ordinary kids growing up in colonial America with absolutely no idea their futures were about to become linked forever. But here's where these old records start to tell a bigger story. When you look at Abigail's family, you get a really harsh dose of reality about what life was like back then. She was one of 9 kids, which sounds like a huge family, right? But look closer. 3 of her siblings, another sister also named Abigail, and 2 brothers, Daniel and Nathaniel, all of them died before they even turned 8. That's just heartbreaking, and a really stark reminder of how fragile life was. But even with that kind of hardship all around them, life, it goes on. And the next chapter we see in the paper trail is a much more hopeful one. It's Jeremiah and Abigail coming together to start a life of their own. And here it is. Look at that. Just one simple, straight-to-the-point line from the Waltham town records. No flowery language, just the facts. But this single sentence, it represents this huge moment of hope and promise for the two of them. This is where their family begins. And pretty soon, their little family started to get a bit bigger. First, their daughter Lydia was born in 1773, and she was followed by another daughter, also named Abigail, just a year later. So now Jeremiah has a wife and 2 small children to provide for, and he's clearly thinking about how to build a stable future for them. Which brings us to our next document. So, what did a guy like Jeremiah do for a living? Well, the land deeds give us a huge clue. They list his job as a cordwainer. Now, that might sound a little strange, but it basically meant he was a shoemaker. And not just any shoemaker who fixed old boots. A cordwainer was a skilled craftsman who made new shoes from new leather. It was a really respectable and important trade to have in the community. And his trade was clearly paying the bills, because in 1773, he makes this huge investment. He pays £77 for his own property. Now, that was a lot of money back then. This purchase tells us he wasn't just getting by, he was ambitious. He was trying to establish himself. And check out what he bought. This wasn't just some empty plot of land. He got the whole package. There was a house with an orchard right next to it, a big 40-acre piece of farmland, and 4 acres of woods for firewood and lumber. He was literally building a self-sufficient life for his family from the ground up. But this whole period, this time of hope and building a home, it was about to come to a crashing halt. Just as the Knowlton family was putting down roots, their world was completely turned upside down by a personal tragedy and, of course, the American Revolution. This timeline, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? The whiplash is incredible. In just 5 short years, Jeremiah goes from getting married to buying his dream property, and then boom, he's a widower with 2 little kids, right at the exact moment the country is exploding into war. The speed of it all is just staggering. And this is the record that just stops you in your tracks. The official language is so cold and formal, but you can feel the heartbreak behind it. Departed this life. Abigail was only 25 years old. So with his world turned upside down, what does he do? He goes to war. The military records show he enlisted at least 3 different times. He served as a sergeant in New York in 1776, fought in the huge Battle of Saratoga in 77, and then served again as a private in the Rhode Island campaign a year later. Okay, so the war is over. He's lost his wife. What comes next? Well, the paper trail shows Jeremiah trying to pick up the pieces and start all over again. Now, this next part might seem, fast to us today. Just 7 months after Abigail's death, Jeremiah gets married again. But you have to remember the reality of the time. He was a single father with 2 infant daughters. Finding a new wife to be a mother to his children wasn't just about love, it was about survival. And so he and his new wife, Hannah, start a new family. They have 3 sons together. But wow, tragedy just seems to stick to this guy. Their first son, James, died when he was just a kid. And for his other 2 sons, Joseph and another boy they also named James, the paper trail just ends. They're baptized, and then they're gone from the records. Vanished. And this is where the story gets really weird. In 1783, Jeremiah sells it all. The house, the orchard, that big 40-acre farm he had worked so hard for. He sells everything he had spent a decade building. And the records give us absolutely no clue why. 0. Was he in debt? Was he sick? We just don't know. So now we're at the very end of the line. The last few documents we have for Jeremiah Knowlton, and honestly, they just leave us with more questions than answers. And here it is, the last official mention of him. 2 years after selling everything, Jeremiah died. He was only 40 years old. And that last detail in the record, it's just heartbreaking. It says his widow, Hannah, and their family were removed to Concord, which probably means they were left with nothing and the town had to step in and relocate them. And that's it. That's where the trail goes completely cold. For a man who owned all that land, who served his country in the war, there's nothing else. No will telling us what he owned, no court records about his estate, and no gravestone telling us where he was buried. He just disappears from history. So there you have it, a whole life, 40 years of hope and work and tragedy and mystery, all pieced together from just a handful of scribbled entries in old town record books. It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? Centuries from now, what story will our records tell about us?